Thank you so much for that warm reception and for being here. It's a great honor for me to be with you all, my friends, AFPI, and to celebrate all the extraordinary work that you did during the first Trump administration. Brooke and I believe we're going to have a second administration, and so the topic of our conversation today is very, very important. It's also Constitution Day, and I, as somebody who dedicated my life to litigating and defending and trying to preserve the Constitution, this is a day of almost singular importance to me. It also, in a more somber note, I'm always of double mind on Constitution Day because September 17th is also the day in 1984 that my father was burned in an explosion on the job. He was a firefighter in my hometown, and he got burned 80% of his body, third-degree burns. It happened in 1984, and this happens to be the 40th anniversary of that tragic day in our family's lives. So I've got mixed emotions as I stand before you, but I lost my dad 3 days before I got elected to Congress, and he survived 30 years plus after the event and died of cancer 3 days before I got elected. So I feel like, especially on a day like today, he's sort of watching over me. So I don't want to mess this up, right? I was with President Trump, as fate would have it, on Sunday. Kelly, my wife, and I had diverted our plans, changed our plans for the day, and we flew to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him about a number of legislative matters and things we'll talk about today. And we arrived at Mar-a-Lago right when he did after the whole shooting incident, and we spent almost 3 hours with President Trump on Sunday. It was a moving experience. It gets a man's attention when he faces a second assassination attempt. But I will say this about President Trump. I said it on social media, and we all know it's true. I don't think there's any American in the history of the country that has been so attacked and yet has stood so strong and resolute. He's unstoppable, and I'm really grateful for his leadership and that stamina that he shows all of us. So I know you are as well. I've been traveling around the country nonstop. That's the job of the speaker in this crazy modern era. And my staff sadistically keeps the statistics. And so last week, at the end of last week, we had done campaign events and fundraising events in over 206 cities across 40 states. And the only reason that's relevant this morning is because I want to tell you that I have traveled more of the country than I ever thought would be possible. And I've met some of the greatest people in the world. We have the greatest people in the world in this country, and they're hurting right now. And you all know it. We all know it. And no matter where I go, people are longing for the success and the economic conditions that so many of the people in this room helped to provide, and that Congress worked with you all, we all worked with you all to bring about during the first administration. And everybody knows during that administration, we brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the United States. And I say that in all these rallies around the country and people nod in agreement because they know it's true. They know that every demographic in the country was doing better. All the statistics, many of those that Brooke just recounted here and some that I'll share here in a moment, made us achieve American greatness again. And we can do it once more, and we have to, because right now we all regret, and at our great national peril, Biden and Harris have largely reversed almost all that success. They undid it in just this short amount of time. For nearly 4 years now, the Biden-Harris administration is engaged in what we know is a big government socialist experiment, and they've done it at our peril. It was always doomed to fail. Those experiments always are. But they don't look at reality all the time. And so every time we turn around, they're trying to do more of what that ideology requires. They want another government program. They want another federal agency. They want more IRS agents. They want more taxes. They want more government spending. And now candidate or comrade Kamala Harris, as President Trump is known to call her now, wants to take it to a whole different level. I mean, if you follow her around on her little campaign speeches, all she's talking about is more centralized price controls and new government spending programs, and everybody gets a car. You know, it's like Oprah's running for president. And no one's asked her how to pay for it yet, by the way, of course, and if they did, she wouldn't have a clue how to explain that. I wish somebody would give her a tough question. I wish she would do a real interview, but that's not on her agenda. And they suggest that they can spend your money better than you can and that you're going to be better off for it. And how's that working out for us? Everybody knows the results. I've been all over the country. As I mentioned, I go north, south, east to west, everywhere. And I go to the blue states and the swing districts and the places we're sometimes not expected to be. And the story is the same everywhere. We've got too many hardworking Americans that are struggling to get by. They really are. And it's real. The struggle is real. Every corner of the country, grocery bills have nearly doubled in the last 4 years. Many families are having to put their groceries on credit cards now, and they tell us about that with tears in their eyes. This is not a sustainable situation. They're resorting to extreme measures, many families now, just to stay afloat and to avoid the repossession of their cars and their homes. The website GoFundMe reported this just a while ago. Fundraising pages set up to avoid home eviction are up 40% since last year alone. I mean, this is a desperate time. And it's no surprise that rent is up 20% since Biden and Harris took office. And so college graduates have had to move back in with their parents, and young married couples are delaying the purchase of a home and starting a family. It has real-world consequences for everybody. Small business owners, meanwhile, and job creators are hurting. Every sector of the economy, they're struggling under the crushing weight of inflation and hyper-regulation. And I've met fourth and fifth generation family businesses that are on the verge of collapse right now. And you talk about the mournful mood of a meeting like that when they've been trying to sustain it. They're trying to keep their head above water, and they're just about done. And because of the Biden-Harris policies, the current forecast is really bleak. In less than 4 years, Americans have gone from the highest level of personal savings to now the lowest. Now more than half of Americans are unable to afford a $1,000 unforeseen emergency. Today, American families can only put 3% of their income into savings for those who are still trying to do it, the lowest consistent level for the past 20 years. And with those reduced savings, Americans now have accumulated far greater debt, and we all know those stories as well. The average American now faces $6,300 of credit card debt, and it mounts every day. And we're all facing the highest credit card interest rates ever and the highest levels of credit card delinquency since the Great Recession. These are real facts and real numbers that no one wants to talk about on the other side. It's no secret why Americans' pocketbooks or saving accounts are getting squeezed. For that, we can thank Bidenomics. And the head cheerleader of Bidenomics, of course, was Kamala Harris. It's her price hikes. She owns it. She co-owns the policy. She said she was the last person in the room every time when the big decisions were made. We'll take her at her word. Sorry. According to MIT economists, inflation spiked to the highest level in 40 years because of the reckless trillion-dollar spending sprees under this president and vice president. And today, all our grocery bills and utility bills and everything is painfully more expensive. Eggs are up 47%, coffee 21%, baby food and formula 30%, fuel 49%, electricity 32%. It goes on and on and on. And the prices on everyday goods are forcing the average American household to pay an additional $13,000 each year just to maintain the same standard of living that they had just a few years ago. I mentioned mortgage payments a few moments ago. They're now costing the average family an additional $15,000 per year. That's real money. And while the price of homes, which are up 39% from when Biden and Harris took office, are now putting the dream of home ownership further out of reach for more people. It's a sad situation, and it doesn't have to be like this. When it's all added up, the Kamala Harris economy, Americans have reduced savings, greater debt, higher prices, and they have fewer full-time jobs and reduced paychecks. That is not a formula for success. We cannot do this for 4 more years. From June 23 to June 24, Americans lost 1.6 full-time jobs, 1.6 million full-time jobs, and the only area where we saw job gains were in part-time work. And why is that? That's because everybody has to get multiple part-time jobs just to keep up, just to put food on the table. We've also seen median household income decrease by 4.7% since 2019. And now in every major sector of the economy, Americans are working more hours for less pay. It shouldn't surprise us. This dire situation has led to a third of Gen Z and millennials to think the American dream doesn't exist anymore. It's out of their reach. And it's caused 1/3 of recent retirees to consider returning to work just so that they can make ends meet. Whatever metric you use, I mean, we could do this all day. We all know the stats. It's inflation, home prices, the ability to retire, the level of debt, the level of savings. Americans are worse off in every measurable category. The Biden-Harris economy has not done well for America. That is the understatement of the century. And everybody works more and they get paid less. This is not a sustainable trajectory, and we can do better. It doesn't have to be this way because we know how to do it. We've already demonstrated how to do that. During the Trump administration, we saw the greatest economy because government did less, not more. Hello, Kamala, less, not more. Middle-class family income increased by nearly 6,000. Incomes rose in every single metro area in the United States. That's the first time that had happened in 3 decades. In 2019, the median family income rose 6.8%, the largest single-year increase on record. Nearly 7 million people gained freedom from dependence on food stamps during the Trump years. We stood up to countries taking advantage of us and added 510,000 manufacturing jobs for our middle-class workers. We expanded apprenticeships to more than 850,000 workers, and we had the lowest unemployment rate in a half-century. And record low rates for Black and African-American workers and Hispanic Americans and people with a high school diploma. Everybody was doing better. Every demographic was succeeding. And the formula for that success was simple, and that's what we have to articulate today because that's what we have to return to. We produced energy here at home. We cut regulations. We reduced government bureaucracy. And we changed the tax code so Americans could keep more of what they earn. We did it by establishing opportunity zones and attracting companies to create jobs in underserved regions rather than overseas. Under President Trump, we unleashed the free market and the pioneering spirit of America. We got government out of the way so Americans could escape poverty and enjoy an era of prosperity. And now that we are on the eve of a new election, all those Americans who've been struggling so mightily because of the Biden-Harris economic disaster now have an opportunity. And our job is to be evangelists for that cause and that truth. We have a chance to restore liberty and opportunity and security to America, to bring back economic freedom and thriving families and small businesses and a strong middle class. And despite the fact that the big government socialist experiment has discouraged growth and innovation, I'm absolutely bullish on the future, and I believe that we can do this again. The American people are the most industrious and hardworking people on the planet. And time again, we pioneered and endured, and we've rebuilt after times of great difficulty. There's a lot of parallels to what we're facing right now as what we faced at the end of the malaise of the Carter years in the late 70s. If you go back and review the history, it's pretty remarkable. We can do this if we have that kind of vision and we bring back the policies that we know that will work. The history of our nation, the secret to our greatness, is that we have that kind of spirit. We pioneered Plymouth and Jamestown in the face of tyranny. We discovered cures to polio and treatments for cancer and disease. We built the skyscrapers in Chicago when the engineering didn't exist to do that. We lit our cities with the light bulb when the world lived in darkness. We built the locomotive. We laid the transcontinental railroad. We settled the West even when it was barren. Our scientists took us to the moon with the Apollo spacecraft and into the 21st century with the personal computer. And our founders, 237 years ago today, devised the greatest governing system in the history of the world when they signed their names to that matchless Constitution that begins with the words, we the people. And as I've traveled around the country since becoming Speaker, despite this decline, I have seen this rugged, innovative American spirit, and it is alive and well. Our people are eager to create. Our factory owners want the chance. They're prepared to break new ground. Our construction workers are ready to build. They just want the opportunity to do it. Our companies are ready to develop new life-saving medicines, and we have AI that's, enhanced that so much right now. Our energy producers are poised to produce enough energy to power the country for the next 100 years and to send it to our allies around the world. If we would just stop adding new regulations that drive up the cost and get the government out of the way. Although we're on exactly the wrong track right now, we can change it, and we intend to lead just as we have done in the past. By doing a few simple things, and with Republican control of the House and the Senate and the White House again, unified government, we can introduce and pass an economic plan that will put us back on that pioneering path of liberty, opportunity, and prosperity for families around this great country. Let me give you a quick recipe, and then Professor Kudlow is going to grill me with some questions, okay? Here's what we envision, and we're working very aggressively to put together a very aggressive first 100 days agenda for the Congress and in the days beyond. We don't put the cart before the horse. We got a lot of work to do between now and Election Day, but I believe that what I'm seeing on the ground is going to happen, that we are going to have this opportunity, so we got to be prepared on day one. The first thing we want to do is promote investment and opportunity, and we do that by extending and building upon the Trump tax cuts. In 2017, we reduced the IRS's invasion into our everyday lives, and we let more of our hard-earned money be kept by those who earned it. Businesses, large and small alike, began new projects, opened new centers, hired new workers, provided better wages. All that was happening because we created the right conditions for it. Democrats, of course, want to repeal those tax cuts. They have a plan that would take more than $300 per monthly paycheck from a family of 5 starting in 2026. If we let the tax cuts expire, in my district in Northwest Louisiana, annual taxes would increase by $2,800 on average. And if we let Harris win, U.S. companies would pay tax rates at least 30% higher than any of their Chinese competitors. Tell me how that makes sense. If you look at the Biden-Harris budget that released earlier this year, you'll see how it punishes farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers with $5 trillion in additional taxes. It's foolish, and it's more than foolish, it's dangerous. The smart approach is broad-based tax policy that unleashes the American entrepreneurial spirit and encourages research, development, and manufacturing. And that's why under our plan, we will ensure that the U.S. remains the preeminent location for the investment in innovation and technology by restoring immediate expensing for R&D costs, by ensuring a strong FDII incentive to encourage U.S. ownership of intellectual property, and restoring the 100% expensing provision. And we'll keep those cuts in place to support job creation, along with the double guaranteed deduction and a strong child tax credit. But unlike the Democrats' proposal, we will ensure that our tax policy respects the dignity of work, and it doesn't pay people for staying out of the workforce. Second, that's the first thing. Second thing, we'll use our economic weight to prioritize this country. That's what America First means. It's about being a good steward of what God has given us. It doesn't mean we're isolationists. It means we're good stewards. You take care of your own house before you take care of the neighborhood, and people have lost sight of that. Gone are the days of allowing China to steal our jobs and exploit our trade deals and hollow out our manufacturing sector. It's obviously not in our national interest to rely on communists for our energy and critical minerals and pharmaceuticals. And we know it's not in our national interest to support the economy of our largest geopolitical adversary. China is almost a peer-to-peer adversary, and we've got to take it seriously. Just last week, the House passed multiple pieces of legislation to counter China's malign economic activity. 28 bills we passed through the House, 15 of them bipartisan. And we'll continue to confront China. We'll also prioritize our country again by using the tax code to secure the border and fight the cartels. The border czar, Kamala Harris, did such an extraordinary job on that task. It is a catastrophe that we will be living with for as long as any of us are alive. I think the actual number, President Trump often says, is probably close to 20 million. I think he's right. I think it's probably 16, 18, 20 million. We don't really know because they're not actually keeping the real numbers. And all those illegals who have come in have resulted in incalculable human suffering, financial cost, and all the rest of the horrors that we don't need to recount this morning. It's got to stop. In addition to securing the border, we can use the tax code to deter illegal immigration and eliminate existing loopholes that reward illegal immigration. Third, we can revive and empower our energy sector. As a Louisianian, this is near and dear to my heart, right? Under the Biden-Harris regime, we've seen the Green New Deal regulations, unrealistic EV mandates, the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. We've seen pauses on LNG permitting and exports, reduced oil refining capacity, and a litany of prohibitively expensive emission standards. That is maddening public policy. It's terribly destructive to our economy, and it undermines our national security. These mandates, by the way, that the government has forced on everybody, have ignored the untapped resources within our soil, and they've ignored the science supporting natural gas, and have made fueling up at the gas station and cooling or heating our homes astronomically more expensive. When we retake control of government, we're going to roll back the Green New Deal regulations and put America back in a place of energy dominance. When President Trump came to meet with the House Republicans after his first term, just a few weeks, maybe a month or so into the term, he came and had breakfast with us, and he said, oh, I'm about to do my impression. I'm sorry. I hear it comes up on me. I hear his voice in my head. He said, we don't want to talk about energy independence, energy dominance. And we were on the back row. Louisiana and Texas guys are like, yes, you know. And we did it. Drill, baby, drill. We did. We were a net exporter. Everybody knows it. Okay, fourth, we can reform our education system. But this is supposed to be a serious speech. We can reform our education system by maximizing school choice for parents and holding woke university administrators accountable. It's out of control. At the heart of the American pioneering spirit is the chance to learn so every citizen can help carry on our experiment in self-government. But we've seen how years of backfiring government programs and exploding administrator payrolls and the Biden-Harris loan cancellation gambit have only made it more expensive to get a degree. And we've also seen how anti-Semitism and Marxism have overtaken our once great university campuses. We have professors who are indoctrinating our students, and they are destroying that pioneering spirit that our young people were once marked by. At the K through 12 level, woke teachers are trying to undercut the role and rights of parents and are making students less prepared for the future along the way. Parents deserve the chance to send their children to the school that best meets each child's needs. So we need to make sure parents have the proper resources and options for kids to learn and grow and thrive and become productive American citizens. Citizens who are ready to continue on our great American experiment. And finally, we can pursue again a policy of responsibility. Under President Biden, we crossed the dangerous threshold of $35 trillion in federal debt. With an interest on the debt now overtaking our defense spending, this is simply an unsustainable and, frankly, immoral position for us to be in. Under President Trump and a unified Republican Congress, as we grow the economy, we will stop mortgaging our children's future to fund today's big government bureaucracy. We will cut the wasteful Green New Deal spending and the Democrats' so-called Inflation Reduction Act that is costing twice as much as it was advertised and is sending our taxpayer dollars to China. We're going to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and improper payments within the federal government, which have grown to the highest levels ever under the Biden-Harris administration. We're going to reduce the size of the federal workforce, and we're going to root out the hundreds of thousands of non-essential jobs that exist throughout the federal bureaucracy. You've heard President Trump and Elon Musk talk about some of this. We're going to look forward to creating a faster, more efficient, and less bloated federal government. Our government is going to be a responsible government with a reduced scope and with reduced spending. We're also going to restore a government that's responsible enough to know that it can't and it should not do everything. Today, as government agencies get bigger and Washington politicians peddle the lie that government can solve every problem, we're actually at risk of creating a nation of people who actually depend on government for everything, at the risk of killing the American pioneering spirit. We know government can't instill an entrepreneurial spirit in young people. It can't inspire the strong work ethic that we need to thrive. Government doesn't teach personal responsibility, and it certainly doesn't demonstrate living within one's means. But the American people can, and families do, and that's why it's on the American people to remember the wise admonition of Ronald Reagan. Government isn't the solution to our problems. Government is the problem, and it really is that simple. So I'll just conclude all this by saying right now we have a real opportunity. Because of the failures of this current administration, this economic regime, our nation is ready for a return to sanity. And the people in this room are the ones who can help deliver that. And for months I've been concluding all these political rallies around the country by explaining this very, very important reality. And this is how I summarize it, and it resonates with people because they know intuitively it's true. We're not in a battle right now anymore just between Republicans and Democrats. In fact, I addressed this a little bit in my speech at the convention. The way I see this, by my own observation, and I'm sure the way many of you see it as well, we're not in a battle just between R's and D's. This is a battle right now between two completely different visions for who we are as a nation and who we're going to be. This is for all the marbles. And we're conservatives, you know, and I ask these large crowds all the time to just think about that. What does it mean to be an American conservative today? What is it we're trying to conserve? I believe, and I talk a lot about what I call the 7 core principles of American conservatism. I think it boils down to individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. And none of those things are subcategories of each one. But what we're trying to preserve, what we're trying to conserve is the greatest nation that has ever been. It's not even close. You can't debate it. We're the most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent nation that has ever been. And the reason we are is because we're built on these very firm foundations that rise up from our Judeo-Christian heritage. All those things are in jeopardy right now. The principles that we're trying to conserve, the foundations of the nation, are under direct assault by a rising element of people, some of whom are being elected to Congress and some of whom are running for the highest positions in the land, who have a totally different vision. They don't revere those founding principles. They disdain them. And they want to replace them with something else that really is the mission. They really are Marxist. They envisioned that America would be, instead of what we are, this great constitutional republic with this matchless Constitution that we celebrate today. They envisioned instead that we would be some sort of European-style socialist Marxist utopia. And everybody in this room knows that is a dangerous fool's errand. I think that, I try not to over-spiritualize everything, okay? But I don't believe God's done with America yet. And I believe he's going to give us another chance. And I believe we're going to be able to preserve what is the last best hope on earth. Lincoln said it first, Reagan used to remind us, and we all need to remind ourselves that that's what this is about. So by God's grace, we're going to get a chance to do it. I'm very bullish on November. I actually do believe we're going to get unified government again, and we're going to be ready to turn that engine right back on, and it's going to be because of the extraordinary work of the people in this room and all of your colleagues in Congress. So thanks so much for the opportunity, Brooke. I hope I didn't go too long. I'm so grateful.